had worked on the Wandering Cradle for 3 galactic cycles. That was a very long time. In those years, she had taken care of children from many different species. She had fed baby who ate only blue crystals. She had played with young who could change their body shape like water. She had sung sleeping songs to hatchlings who needed warmth from special lamps. But she had never taken care of human children before. Her people were tall and covered in soft fur. They had 4 arms, which was very useful when taking care of many small children at once. Her eyes were large and golden, and her ears could hear sounds from very far away. They were known across the galaxy as the best caretakers. They were patient. They were gentle. They noticed everything. The Wandering Cradle was not a normal ship. It was a nursery ship, the biggest one in all the Allied systems. It floated through space like a small moon, carrying the children of diplomats, soldiers, scientists, and traders. When parents had important work that was too dangerous for little ones, they sent their children here, and the other caretakers kept them safe, fed them, taught them, and played with them until their families could return. 2 weeks ago, 5 human children had arrived. Remembered that day clearly. The transport ship had docked at Bay 7. She had stood waiting with her, reading the information about her new charges. Human children, ages 4 to 7. Parents were diplomats working on something called the Frontier Negotiations. Very important, very secret, very dangerous for small ones. The door of the transport had opened, and had seen them for the first time. First came, she was 6 years old with long black hair tied in 2 parts. She walked slowly and looked at everything with serious eyes. Behind her was the oldest at 7. He was thin and quiet, holding a small bag very tightly against his chest. Then came, who was 5 and already talking very fast to no one in particular. She pointed at the lights, at the walls, at fur. Next was also 6, who kept his eyes on the floor and held his hand. And last, carried by a transport worker, was Little. She was only 4 years old, the youngest, with round cheeks and eyes that were red from crying. "Hello, little ones," had said in her warmest voice. "Welcome to the Wandering Cradle. I am caretaker. I will take care of you while your parents are working." Had looked up at her. The small human girl showed no fear at strange appearance. "You have 4 arms," she said. "Yes, I do." "That's useful," said nodding. "You can hug 2 children at the same time." Had liked her immediately. The first 2 weeks had been exactly what the briefing files had promised. Human children were loud. They ran everywhere. They never seemed to get tired. They asked questions about everything, and when answered, they asked more questions about the answers. They touched things they should not touch. They climbed things they should not climb. They formed friendships and then fought and then became friends again, all in the same hour. Learned many things about humans in those 2 weeks. She learned that they needed to eat 3 times every day, and they were very particular about their food. Did not like green vegetables. Wanted everything to be sweet. Would only eat food that was not touching other food on his plate. Was still learning to use eating tools and made a mess every single meal. She learned that human children needed a lot of sleep, but they did not want to sleep. Every night was a small battle. They wanted one more story. They wanted water. They wanted to ask one more question. They were scared of the dark, but also scared of too much light. Had adjusted the sleeping room 17 times before everyone was satisfied. She learned that they played in strange ways. They pretended to be things they were not. Would say, "I am a space captain now," and the others would accept this completely. They would follow her orders. They would call her captain. Then an hour later she would be a princess, and everyone would adjust without confusion. Found this fascinating. Children did not play this way. She learned that human children formed packs. The 5 of them had become a unit. They had their own rules, their own jokes, their own language of looks and small gestures. When one was upset, the others gathered around. When one was happy, they all celebrated. It was beautiful to watch. But most of all, learned that human children were never, ever quiet. Even when they were supposed to be doing silent activities, they made noise. They hummed. They whispered. They tapped their fingers. They shuffled their feet. The playroom was always full of sound when they were inside it. That was why the silence was so terrifying. It was the 14th day, was in the supply room organizing nutritional packs for the evening meal. She could hear the children playing in the playroom down the corridor, was laughing, was making sounds like a spaceship, was giving orders in her captain voice. Normal sounds, happy sounds. Then nothing. Her ears twitched. She stopped moving. She listened. Silence. Complete silence. She waited 3 heartbeats. Human children did not go silent. Something was wrong. Moved quickly. Her 4 arms grabbed the emergency communicator from her belt. Her feet, soft and padded, made no sound on the metal floor. Her mind raced through possibilities. Had something attacked them? No, impossible. The ship's security was perfect. Had they escaped the room? She checked her while running. The door was closed. All life signs were still inside. Were they hurt? Were they sick? Had something happened? She reached the playroom door. Her hand pressed the opening panel. The door slid open. Stopped breathing. The 5 human children sat in the center of the room. They were arranged in a perfect circle. Their eyes were closed. Their bodies were completely still. Their small hands rested on their knees, palms facing upward. They were not moving. They were barely breathing. They looked like tiny statues made of flesh. And the circle they sat in was perfect. Not almost perfect. Not close to perfect. Mathematically, geometrically, impossibly perfect. The distances between each child were exactly the same. The angles were precise. It was as if someone had measured everything with tools. But no one had watched the recording later. The children had done this alone. Stood in the doorway, all 4 of her arms hanging at her sides, and felt something she had not felt in many years of caring for alien children. She felt afraid. "Cubs," she whispered. No response. The human children sat in their perfect circle, breathing in unison, their faces peaceful and empty, and the silence continued. What had they done? What were they doing? What were these creatures? Did not move for a long moment. She stood in the doorway of the playroom, looking at the 5 human children sitting in their strange circle, and her mind tried to understand what she was seeing. They were so still. Children could not sit this still. Children could not sit this still. No children she had ever cared for in 3 galactic cycles could sit this still. Yet here were 5 human cubs, the youngest only 4 years old, sitting like ancient stones. Stepped into the room slowly. Her padded feet made soft sounds on the floor, but the children did not react. She walked closer, watching their faces. Their eyes were closed, their expressions peaceful. They did not look scared. They did not look hurt. They looked empty. No, that was not the right word. They looked full of something did not understand. She stopped 2 steps away from the circle and looked more carefully. Little sat facing the door. Her round cheeks were relaxed. Her tiny hands rested on her tiny knees, palms turned up toward the ceiling. Her chest moved slowly, very slowly, rising and falling with each breath. Counted the time between breaths. 8 seconds in, 8 seconds out. Perfect rhythm. A 4-year-old child was breathing like a trained meditation master. Next to sat the quiet boy who always looked at the floor, had his chin lifted slightly. His back was straight. He had never sat this straight before, had seen him eat, play, and study. He always bent forward, always curved his shoulders inward as if trying to make himself smaller. Now he sat tall and open. Beside was the girl who never stopped talking. Her mouth was closed. Her body was still. This was the same child who could not sit through a 5-minute meal without jumping up to look at something. Now she sat like she had been sitting for hours, like she could sit for hours more. Then the oldest. His thin face was calm. His bag, the one he always carried and never let go of, sat beside him outside the circle. He had put it down. In 2 weeks had never seen him put that bag down. And finally, the leader. Even with her eyes closed, she seemed to be in charge. Her position in the circle was no different from the others, but something about her felt like the center. Looked at the circle again. She had been a caretaker for many years. She had good eyes. She could see that the children were spaced perfectly. The distance from two was the same as the distance from two, the same as two, the same as two, the same as back two. A perfect five-pointed shape, drawn with human bodies instead of lines. How the children had been playing normally just minutes ago, had heard them, then silence, and now this. They had arranged themselves in this perfect pattern in only moments, without talking, without measuring, without any tools. His hearts beat faster, all three of them. She did not know if she should wake them. She did not know if they were sleeping. She did not know what was happening. "Cubs," she said again, louder this time. "Children, can you hear me?" Nothing. The breathing continued. In and out, in and out. All five of them at the same time, like one creature with five bodies. Then opened her eyes. Almost stepped backward. The girl's eyes were calm, too calm. They were the eyes of someone much older, someone who had seen many things, someone who understood things that did not. "Hello," caretaker said. Her voice was soft and steady. "We needed to be quiet for a while." Found her voice. "What are you doing, little one?" "Sitting," said simply. "But how are you sitting like this, so still, so arranged?" Tilted her head, a very human gesture that had learned to recognize. It meant the child was thinking about how to explain something. "Showed us," she said. At the sound of his name, opened his eyes too. The thin boy looked at without fear. "My grandmother taught me," he said. "Before I came to the ship. She said space is very big and sometimes it makes your heart feel too small. She said when that happens, you should sit and breathe and let your heart grow." Did not fully understand. "But the circle, the perfect distances, how did you make them?" Looked confused. "We just sat down." "We just sat where it felt right," added, opening her eyes. She yawned and stretched her arms above her head. "Said close your eyes and feel where everyone is, so I did, and I could feel them. I knew where to sit." "You could feel them," repeated. "Feel them how?" "I don't know," said, shrugging. "I just could, like how you know where your arm is without looking at it. I knew where they were." Opened his eyes next. He did not speak, but he nodded slowly, agreeing with. Finally, little stirred. The 4-year-old yawned hugely and rubbed her eyes with her small fists. She looked up at and smiled her bright, innocent smile. "We were being quiet," she announced proudly. "Very, very quiet, did you see?" "Yes," said slowly. "I saw, you were very quiet indeed." Beamed. Then she stood up, breaking the circle, and walked over too. She raised her arms in the universal gesture of wanting to be picked up. Used 2 of her 4 arms to lift the small human. Was warm and soft, and she immediately put her head on shoulder. "I miss my dog," said quietly. He is Fluffy. Sitting quiet helps me feel less sad about." Felt something shift in her chest. This small creature missed her pet. She was 4 years old, alone in space, far from everything she knew. And she had found a way to feel less sad. She had sat down, closed her eyes, and somehow connected with the other children in a way that could not explain. "That is a good reason to sit quietly," said gently. "I am sorry you miss." "It's okay," said. "When I sit quiet, I can remember him better. I can see his face inside my head." Had stood up now, and the other children followed. The circle was broken, but could still see where they had been. The pattern was burned into her memory. "Can we have a snack?" asked. "Sitting quiet makes me hungry." "Of course," said. But even as she led them to the food area, even as she prepared their evening meal, even as she listened to them return to their normal noise and chaos, she could not stop thinking about what she had seen. Perfect geometry, synchronized breathing, a 4-year-old breathing like a master, a 7-year-old teaching ancient techniques to younger children in moments. What were humans? What could they do? That night, after the children were asleep, sent a message to the ships. "Doctor," she wrote, "something happened today. Something I do not understand. I think you need to see the recordings." She attached the video file and pressed send. Then she sat outside the sleeping room, listening to the soft sounds of 5 human children breathing in their sleep, and wondered what secrets lived inside their small bodies. Doctor arrived at station early the next morning. He was tall and thin, with a body like a stick insect and wings that shimmered with green and purple colors. His eyes were large and multifaceted, allowing him to see many things at once. He had been studying alien species for 40 years and thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. "Show me the recording again," he said to. They were in his laboratory, a room full of strange machines and glowing screens. From the beginning. Touched the control panel. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the playroom from above. The 5 human children were playing normally, was chasing around a table, was building something with blocks, was sitting alone holding his bag, was drawing pictures on an electronic pad. Typical behavior, noted. High energy, constant movement. This matches all documentation on human juveniles. Wait, said, watch. On the screen, the thin boy suddenly stopped. He put his bag down gently. Then he walked to the center of the room and sat down. He crossed his legs. He put his hands on his knees. He closed his eyes. The other children noticed. One by one, they stopped what they were doing. They watched for a moment. Then, without any words, they began to move toward him. No verbal communication, observed, his wings buzzing with interest. No signals that I can see. How did they know? I do not know, said, keep watching. Sat down first, positioning herself across from, then little. They moved to their positions smoothly, naturally, as if they had practiced this many times, but knew they had not. This was the first time. Within 3 minutes, all 5 children were sitting in a perfect circle. Their eyes were closed. Their bodies were still. Leaned forward, his faceted eyes glittering. Paused the recording. Paused it. Show me the measurement overlay. Activated the measurement function. Blue lines appeared on the hologram, showing distances and angles. Numbers floated next to each line. Made a sound that did not recognize, an expression of shock. The distances are identical, he said slowly. To the millimeter. The angles are exactly 72 degrees each. This is a perfect regular pentagon. I know, said. They are children, human children, ages 4 to 7. I know. This level of spatial awareness is not documented in human juveniles. It is not documented in human adults. This precision would require measurement tools, calculations, training. Wings were buzzing so fast they became a blur. How did they do this? Said she could feel where the others were, said. She said she knew where to sit without looking. Stared at her. Proprioception across separate bodies. That is impossible. Each organism has awareness of its own body only. They cannot feel other bodies. The human children did. Turned back to the recording. Continue playing. The children sat in their circle. Seconds passed, then minutes. Watched face as the scientist observed. Their breathing, said suddenly. Look at their breathing. Had noticed it before, but seeing it again still made her fur stand up. All 5 children were breathing at exactly the same time. In together, out together, like one creature with 5 bodies. Show me the biometric data, demanded. Called up the information from the playroom sensors. The room monitored all life signs for safety reasons. Heart rate, breathing rate, body temperature, brain activity. Made that strange sound again. Their heart rates are synchronized, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. 60 beats per minute, all 5 of them, exactly 60. Yes. Their breathing is synchronized, 8-second inhale, 8-second exhale, all 5. Yes. Their brain wave patterns are, stopped. He stared at the data for a long moment. This cannot be correct. The sensors must be damaged. I checked the sensors, said. They are working perfectly. Looked at her. His large eyes held something I'd never seen in them before: fear. Their brain waves are synchronized too, he said. All 5 children are producing identical theta waves. This is a state usually seen only in deep meditation or sleep, but they are awake, and they are connected. Somehow they have linked their minds. Felt cold despite her fur. What does this mean? I do not know. Turned back to the recording. The children sat in their circle for 18 minutes total before interrupted them. 18 minutes of perfect stillness, perfect synchronization, perfect connection. I must report this to the council, said finally. The council, is that necessary? They are just children. They are human children, corrected. And they just demonstrated an ability that no species in the Allied systems possesses. The ability to spontaneously synchronize their biological functions without technology, without training, without even apparent effort. Began gathering data files, copying them to a secure storage device. His movements were quick and nervous. We have been allies with the humans for 30 years, he continued. We thought we understood them. We knew they were adaptable. We knew they were social. We knew they could survive in many environments. But this, he gestured at the frozen image of 5 small children sitting in a perfect circle. This we did not know. They were just trying to feel calm, said quietly. They miss their families. They are far from home. They found a way to comfort each other. Stopped moving. He looked at with his multifaceted eyes. You speak as if this is normal, as if it is simple. To them it seemed simple. That is what frightens me. Picked up his data device. If their children can do this without thinking, without trying, without even understanding what they are doing, what can their adults do? What are they capable of when they actually try? He walked toward the door, then stopped. Keep watching them, he said. Record everything. Note any other unusual behaviors. The council will want to know. They are children, repeated, not subjects for study. They are both, said. They are children, and they are the most interesting scientific discovery I have made in 40 years. Do not let them out of your sight. He left. Stood alone in the laboratory, surrounded by screens showing data about 5 small humans. Heart rates, breathing patterns, brain waves, numbers and graphs that tried to explain something that numbers and graphs could not capture. She thought about who missed her dog, about whose grandmother had taught him to breathe, about who led without speaking, about who was so quiet, about who never stopped moving until she found stillness. They were not a scientific discovery, they were children. But understood why was afraid. She understood why the council would be interested, because she had seen the circle. She had seen the synchronization. She had felt the strange power of 5 small humans breathing as one. And if she was honest with herself, she was a little afraid too. The Allied Species Council met in a great circular chamber at the heart of Station Prime. This was where the most important decisions in the galaxy were made. Wars had been ended here. Trade agreements had been signed here. New species had been welcomed into the alliance here. Today, the council had gathered to discuss 5 human children. Stood at the edge of the chamber, her position as a witness. She had been called to answer questions, to describe what she had seen. But for now, she could only watch as the most powerful beings in the Allied systems argued about her small charges. Representative spoke first. He was a species with no solid form. His body looked like a ball of clear gel with lights floating inside it. When he spoke, his whole body rippled. The evidence is clear, said. These human juveniles demonstrated spontaneous biological synchronization. Their hearts, their breathing, their brain activity all matched perfectly, without technology, without training, without effort. We have the data, added Science Director Milos, a small being covered in blue scales. The sensors were not damaged. The readings are accurate. 5 human children, ages 4 to 7, achieved a state that our best meditation masters cannot reach after decades of practice. Murmurs filled the chamber. The council members shifted in their seats, their various forms expressing discomfort in different ways. Ambassador Kell of the raised one-clawed hand. Her people were tall and covered in silver scales, with faces that showed no emotion, but her voice was tight with something that might have been worry. Perhaps this is unique to these 5 individuals, she suggested. A genetic anomaly, an isolated case. We should not make general conclusions about the human species based on 5 children. We already checked, Doctor replied. He stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by floating screens that showed his research. I contacted human databases. I searched their public information networks. What these children did, they call it meditation. It is common among their species. He touched a control and the screens changed. Images appeared showing adult humans sitting in similar positions, groups of humans in circles, humans alone, humans in buildings, humans outside, hundreds of images. Millions of humans practice this, continued. They have done so for thousands of years. They teach it to their children as easily as they teach them to walk. These 5 juveniles did nothing special by human standards. They did what many human children can do. The chamber went silent. General, a massive warrior with 4 arms and skin like stone, leaned forward. You are saying this is normal for them, that their children routinely achieve mental synchronization. That is what the evidence suggests, said. Then what can their adults do? Demanded. If children can link minds without trying, what happens when trained humans make an effort? What are they capable of? We do not know, admitted. The humans do not share military or strategic information about their species' capabilities, but if their children can do this. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Sjel's body rippled violently. We must consider the security implications. The humans are our allies, yes, but we had no idea they possessed these abilities. What else are they hiding? What other powers have they not revealed? They may not be hiding anything, said, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to her. The caretaker felt small in this great chamber, surrounded by powerful beings, but she had to speak. With respect to the council, she continued, I have spent 2 weeks with these children. They did not know they were doing anything unusual. When I asked them how they formed the perfect circle, they said they just sat where it felt right. When I asked about the synchronized breathing, they did not understand why I was asking. To them, it was nothing special. That is precisely what concerns me, said. They have these powers and do not even recognize them as powers. Imagine what they could do if they tried. Or imagine what they could do if they were threatened, General added. If peaceful children can synchronize their minds, what happens when human soldiers face death together? What collective abilities might emerge? The chamber erupted in worried voices. Representatives from a dozen species all spoke at once, expressing fears, asking questions, making accusations. Listened, and she felt sadness growing in her heart. She thought about the 4-year-old who missed her dog, had sat in that circle because she was lonely, because she was sad, because her small heart needed comfort, and somehow, connecting with the other children made her feel less alone. She thought about the quiet 7-year-old whose grandmother had taught him to breathe. His grandmother had given him a gift, a way to find peace when the universe felt too big. He had shared that gift with the younger children. That was all. She thought about who led without speaking because she was the oldest and felt responsible. About who was so quiet because he was shy, but who had reached out to the others in the only way he could. About who never stopped moving because she was full of energy, but who had learned to be still when stillness was needed. These were not weapons. These were not threats. These were children coping with being far from home. But the council did not see children. They saw potential enemies. They saw unknown powers. They saw danger. We should restrict human access to sensitive areas, one representative suggested. We should demand full disclosure of their species' capabilities, another said. We should reconsider the alliance, a third added darkly. Felt her fur standing up with anger. She wanted to shout at them. She wanted to tell them they were being foolish, but she was just a caretaker. Her voice meant nothing here. Then Elder Priest spoke. Was ancient even by galactic standards. She was a species of tall, thin beings who lived for thousands of years. Her skin was like paper and her eyes glowed with soft white light. She had said nothing during the entire meeting. Now when she spoke, everyone fell silent. I have watched humans for 300 years, said. Her voice was like wind through dry leaves. Since they first reached the stars, since they first made contact with other species, since they first joined the alliance. She paused, looking around the chamber. In all that time I have seen them fight. I have seen them build. I have seen them create and destroy. But do you know what has always impressed me most about them? No one answered. Their children, continued. Human children are fragile. They take years to mature. They cannot survive alone. Yet humans protect them fiercely. They teach them constantly. They give them every tool they can to face an uncertain universe. She gestured toward the screen still showing the image of 5 small children in a circle. This meditation you fear, it is not a weapon. It is a gift. Human parents give their children the ability to find calm in chaos, to connect with others when they feel alone, to carry their own hearts even when the universe feels too big. Looked directly at. Her glowing eyes seemed to see everything. The caretaker is right. These are not threats. These are children, and we should be ashamed that we see danger where there is only love. The chamber was silent. Sjel's body had stopped rippling. General sat back in his seat. Ambassador Kell's cold face showed the smallest crack of uncertainty. The Council will take no action against the human children or their species based on this incident, declared. That is my recommendation. Does anyone disagree? No one spoke. Good stood slowly, her ancient body moving with careful dignity. Perhaps we should spend less time fearing what humans can do and more time asking what we might learn from them. She walked out of the chamber. Watched her go, and for the first time since this began, she felt hope. 3 days after the council meeting, a transport ship docked at Base 7 of the Wandering Cradle. Stood waiting, just as she had 3 weeks ago when the children first arrived. But this time, she was not waiting to receive. She was waiting to say goodbye. The 5 human children stood beside her, holding their small bags, wearing their clean clothes. They had been told that their parents were coming. The news had created excitement, then nervousness, then a strange calm. Caretaker said quietly, "Yes, little one. Will you remember us?" Looked down at the serious 6-year-old girl. "I will remember you forever, all of you. You have taught me many things." Nodded, satisfied with this answer. The transport door opened, and 2 adult humans stepped out. The woman was tall and slim, with long black hair likes. Her face showed signs of tiredness, but her eyes were bright and warm. The man beside her was broader, with kind eyes and hands that looked strong but gentle. "Mama," broke from the group and ran toward the woman, arms wide open. The woman dropped to her knees and caught the small girl, pulling her into a tight embrace. "My baby," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "My sweet, I missed you so much." The other children followed, and soon both adults were surrounded by small bodies, all trying to hug at once. Watched the reunion with warmth in her hearts. This was why she did her work. These moments made everything worthwhile. After several minutes, the adults straightened up. The woman approached, one hand still holding. "I am," she said, bowing her head in greeting. "This is my husband. We are the official guardians for all 5 children during this mission. Thank you for taking care of them." It was my honor, replied. They are wonderful children. Stepped forward, his expression careful. We received a message from the council about an incident, something about meditation. Hesitated. She was not sure how much the parents knew or how they would react. There was some concern, she admitted. The children practiced a sitting exercise together. It attracted attention from the ship's scientists. And exchanged a look. It was a look that had seen many times between adults, a whole conversation happening without words. They were frightened, said. It was not a question. Yes. Sighed. She looked down at, who was playing with her hair, then at the other children who were busy showing their drawings and treasures. They always are, said, turning back to. Every species we meet, every alliance we join, every relationship we build, at some point they discover something about us that frightens them. Our adaptability, our persistence, our ability to survive things that should kill us, and now, apparently, our ability to sit quietly in circles. There was sadness in her voice, but also something else. Acceptance, perhaps, or patience. Is it true? Asked. What the children did, the synchronization, the perfect patterns, is that normal for your species? Smiled. Normal is a strange word. It is common. Many humans meditate. Many human children learn basic techniques. What my children did, perhaps it was more advanced than usual. They have spent a lot of time together, these 5. They know each other very well. When you know someone well, it becomes easier to connect with them. But the precision, said, the exact distances, the identical heart rates, how is that possible without technology? Thought about this for a moment. Do you know what a flock of birds is, caretaker? I have read about them, many small flying creatures moving together. Exactly, hundreds of birds, sometimes thousands, moving as one. They do not have technology. They do not communicate with words, yet they turn and dive and rise together, perfectly synchronized. Scientists on Earth studied this for many years. They found that each bird only watches the birds closest to it. Small individual connections create large collective patterns. Looked at the children. Humans are social creatures. We are built to connect. Our brains are designed to sense others, to mirror them, to move with them. When we calm our minds, these natural abilities become stronger. We feel each other more clearly. We fall into rhythm without trying. But your children are so young, said. Young minds are flexible, said, joining the conversation. Was sitting on his shoulders now, playing with his ears. They have not yet learned to build walls between themselves and others. They connect easily. They trust easily. The meditation just lets that natural ability show. Considered this. She thought about all the things she had seen in 3 weeks. The way the children formed packs. The way they responded to each other's emotions. The way they played their pretend games, shifting roles and rules without confusion. Your species is remarkable, she said finally. We are just humans, replied. We are small and soft and weak. We die easily. We cannot breathe in space or survive in acid or live for thousands of years. The galaxy is full of species more powerful than us in every physical way. She reached out and touched his arm gently. But we learned long ago that we survive best together. We taught ourselves ways to connect, to support each other, to share our strength. Meditation is just one of those ways. We give it to our children so they can survive a very big universe. That is all. That is not a small thing, said. Smiled. No, I suppose it is not. The time came to leave. The children gathered their belongings. There were hugs and promises and a few tears. Little cried the hardest, not because she was sad to leave, but because she was happy and overwhelmed and 4 years old. Hugged each child with all 4 of her arms. Thank you for teaching me, she told. I did not teach you anything, the boy said, confused. You taught me more than you know. The family walked toward the transport ship. At the door, turned back and waved. Her serious face broke into a rare smile. Goodbye, caretaker. I will remember you forever, too. Then they were gone. stood alone in the docking bay, watching the transport ship disconnect and drift away into the stars. She stayed there for a long time, thinking about everything she had learned. The council had been afraid. Doctor had been afraid. Even herself had been afraid for a moment when she first saw the circle. They had looked at 5 human children and seen potential weapons, unknown powers, hidden dangers. But Elder Priest had been right. There was no danger, there was only love. Human parents, facing an uncertain universe, had found a way to give their children peace. They had taught them to breathe, to sit, to connect with each other when they felt alone. They had given them tools to carry their own hearts through the darkness of space. That was not frightening. That was beautiful. Return to the playroom. It was empty now, quiet in a normal way, but she could still see where the children had sat. She could imagine the circle, the perfect pattern of 5 small bodies breathing as one. She sat down in the center of the room. She crossed her legs, arranged her 4 arms on her knees, and closed her eyes. She did not know if could meditate like humans. She did not know if she could find that calm, that connection, that peace. But she wanted to try. For 18 minutes, sat in the empty playroom, breathing slowly, remembering 5 human children who had taught her something precious. The universe was very big, but sitting quietly, breathing gently, remembering those you love, that made it smaller. That made it bearable. That was the human way. And perhaps thought it could be her way too.